Hello, you lovely creatives. I'm Ashley from Ash Wright Slots, and today I'm going to talk about a plotting option that I really enjoy. I know there are many plotting options out there, and this one is probably very well known, which I believe it is. But it is the snowflake method for plotting a novel, in which I really enjoy using it. This is actually the first time I used it for my project that is Spell of the Bayou that I'm working on right now during this Camp NaNoWriMo. So I figured I'd go over the information about how I'm plotting it out using the snowflake method. I recently read a book called How to Write a Novel Using the Snowflake Method by Randy Ingermanson, and I thought it was very interesting. A great way to show how to use the process was to actually tell a story using the process and then actually showing us the steps at the end. So I really enjoyed it, which actually the steps are pretty laid out within the story, which is a retelling of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It is much more extensive. I really enjoyed reading the book. So I use that as a way to actually plot out this story. I often just plot out act one, two, and three, and then I moved into adding the elements of romance, in which I probably should do a video on that too. But this way seems to really help me with fleshing it out and being more prepared while I'm doing this draft during Camp NaNoWriMo. So I'm just going to go over the steps. All right, so the first step is to figure out what your category is, what type of story you're trying to tell, and then also what your target audience will enjoy about your story. So that is just a good way to kind of set up the marketing and figure out, what you're going to do with your story to continue on. Okay, so for mine, my title is Spell of the Bayou, and the category would be urban fantasy. And what kind of story would be? I want a story full of magic, black women, beastly men. I do want to have some sex, some vices, bad decisions, growth, and a happy ending. And my audience will enjoy it because they'll be happy to have a story with a leading woman they can identify with, a plus size woman with a man that can handle her, a story that includes some sexy times with a monstrous man. So I do want to do that. And then my target length right now is 50,000 words, and that's just so I can make sure I get the story out. But I'm sure it's going to be a little bit longer based on the plans I have for the story. The next step of the process was to go ahead and create a one sentence summary of your story. So basically, what is that, like a pitch or a long line? I got to be able to tell you the gist of the story within a sentence. Now, in the book, he does outline it as being 25 words maximum, but he does say, hey, you can go ahead and keep going if needed, but you don't want it to be a paragraph long sentence. So definitely keep that in mind. And for Spell of the Bayou, it is a young thief is on a mission to steal an artifact up for auction, but a shape-shifting mercenary who is standing against a band of murderous hunters gets in the way. So that's what I have right now. It has actually changed a few times, but as of right now, that's what I'm sticking with because I do want to make sure you understand the stakes in the story, and the hunters are there, and then putting in the erotic side of it, the hunters would still be prevalent because of what they're trying to do. So yeah, it should be fine. And you want to take at least an hour to do that. He says give yourself an hour to just work on it. So you just block out that time just to work on your one sentence summary. All right, so once you finish your one sentence summary, you move on to the one paragraph summary. Now that one is still giving you an hour to do, and in which you want to make sure you list your three disasters in this particular section. So you have to break it down between the acts. So say in the first sentence, you want to deal with setting up your character information, setting information, things like that. And then on the second sentence, you're going to do act one. You set up information for act one. And then at the end, you do your disaster, in which basically that is getting them to commit to the story. So your characters need to start committing to the story, your main character at least. Then for Act 2, you're going to do that in two parts. So the first part of Act 2, you have for the story. Then you move into the disaster that is in the middle of Act 2. And you want to make sure that is where you're showing that your character is changing their mind, maybe changing the moral information, moral compass, and things like that. And then for Act 2, the second half of it, you want to talk about what's going on in Act 2, the second half, and then what's the next disaster. And now they have to, your character needs to commit to the end, as in, we in for the long haul. This is done. We're about to fight. And this is gonna be the end. So then once you do that, you move into Act 3, which should be the showdown of the actual story. Okay, so now that you've gotten one sentence summary, one paragraph, you need to now move on to a character sheet, in which it's not as long as everyone. You're basically making a summary sheet for that character. So you're just putting down their goals, motivations, conflicts, any type of values that they have. What is their one sentence summary? What is their one paragraph summary? Like, how do they affect the story as a character? Now, your main character is going to have the same one sentence and one paragraph summary as your whole story. So that one's pretty much done in that area. But every other character needs to have their own one sentence or summary, or one paragraph summary for the story. So then you complete that, and it should be 1 hour per character. Now, it does take a while, and it makes you think, and you have to do it for even your villains. So have fun with that. I actually have a lot of fun with villains, but my main issue that I had with this process was just trying to make sure that my two main characters didn't get on each other's nerves so badly that there was no way for them to have a romance. Like, they didn't do anything crazy. Okay, so then you take another hour now after you finish your characters to go ahead and do a one-page synopsis. So each one of the sentences that are for your one paragraph summary needs to be expanded out in order to show, all the parts of the story into a paragraph apiece. So that should be your one page. That's pretty simple, straightforward. You're just expanding on what you are working on. Then you go ahead and jump right back to the characters and you make a character synopsis. So this is where you find the backstory, go a little bit more into their motivations. You're trying to get to know your character in this particular step, and you should be taking an hour on each character, at least depending on how big their role is in the story. So the two main characters in my story, they got the full hour. I had a lot of stuff that I was trying to put in for them. And then other characters who are more minor, they got it seemed like about 30 minutes at the most for the smaller characters. Okay, now it's the long synopsis, and that's 4 to 5 pages, depending on how much you're doing for your write, how much your story entails. This is just even more elaboration on what your story is, what you're trying to do, and then making sure that the characters are being utilized within the story. You're just basically trying to see where everything lands and expand on the story. So mine actually turned out to be 6 pages. So that's why I'm figuring it's going to be a little bit more than 50,000 words. I'm thinking it's going to be about 70, but we don't know. The goal is to get to 50. So then after that, you move to step 7. You write a character Bible. Now the character Bible, this is where you get into how they look, childhood stuff, any other backstory information that you can think of, any type of scars, any reasoning behind anything that they may have going on with their bodies. This is where you get into what is their favorite food, what is their eye color, what is their favorite memory from their mother, and things like that. So you throw in everything you can to get to know your characters even more. And then for step 8, you gotta write a list of all of the scenes for the story. So you write out each one of the scenes as a sentence in order to list out your story. So I'm using the synopsis and listing out everything that I need to do to get to those parts of the story in the synopsis. Now that took a few days. We were allowed a few days on that. That's what it says. It's a few days. It took a while. So then after the actual scene selection, you needed to actually plan out each one of the scenes. So in each one of the scenes, I expanded upon it, try to figure out, is it a good thing? How will it lead into the next scene? Trying to make sure that it's all the way every point is hit, and then I go ahead and continue on with each scene after. And then once I did the scene, I did go back and actually try to add in the elements of romance if I missed them. If I can't figure out, like, hey, why didn't I go ahead and make sure I put in a first point of attraction between the two characters or something, I need to go in and make sure that scene can fit in the attraction for the characters. And if not, then is it possible to put it anywhere else? And does it feel right? Does it make sense? I mean, there's a lot of work going into trying to figure this out. So you're planning like lots, so much you're planning in this snowflake method. And this is the first time I ever did it full on. I've actually read on the website advancedfictionwriting.com, and I had the general information, but it just didn't really click as well until I actually read the book, which then had the kind of life example using Goldilocks and the Three Bears and the Big Black Wolf and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting, and I did really enjoy the book, like I said. And the next step is to write the novel. Number 10, get it done. You write your novel. So once you write your novel, that's the first draft, and which that's what I'm working on right now during Camp NaNoWriMo. The goal is to just get 25,000 words. So basically just half of the required novel length, and then move on to next month to do the same thing. But I have found that it's really kind of coming out pretty easily because of this particular super amount of planning that has been done. So another thing that I really enjoy about this particular way of planning is the fact that each one of the back and forth between the characters and the story allows me to make any changes that I need to. So if I find that, hey, I've made my synopsis, my one sentence, my one paragraph, then I start working on the characters. Then I go back to the story and I'm like, well, the character doesn't really seem like they will be fitting for this particular length of the story, the way the story is working out. I can go back and fix it in the one sentence and the one paragraph summary in order to keep myself up, like, you know, whenever I read through it again to get started, I can keep it in order. So that's usually what stops me when I am doing things like just straight writing through. If I think of something better or it seems to fit better, then I have to stop, go back, fix my outline, fix my summary stuff that I've already done with previous methods, and then go back and start writing again. So this way, at least, I'm doing a lot of back and forth, and I don't have to fight myself to figure out what I'm going to do with this story before I even, you know, get hands on keyboard or mouth to mic. Once I finish writing everything with my first draft, hopefully it's a much cleaner draft than I normally have. I usually don't let anybody see anything I've written until I've drafted at least 3 times. Sometimes it gets up to 6. So maybe this time it won't be as bad because I have so much planning and plotting done already. Thank you so much for coming and watching this video in which I've found that I ramble a lot and enjoying it. Hopefully, please like, subscribe. Tell me how you plan on planning out your stories. How do you plot? How do you make updates and changes inside of your planning ways? Are you a pantser? Do you just like, you know what, I got an idea, I know what I'm going to do, and it's going to get done? Do you make sure that you have the end in mind before you start writing? Like, what do you do? I plan everything. I'm like by the numbers. I just had to do it. So let me know. I'll talk with you in the comments. Thank you so much for visiting today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. That was a rambly thing. That was a rambly.